Good evening, children. Welcome back. Today we will start our session with a rapid recapitulation of the chapter 10, 18th century political formations. During my last two videos, where we already have explored a lot of information about the new emerging states during the time of later Mughals. These particular times, the 10th century, that means the 1707 after the death of Aurangzeb, it is very significant time. Why? Because after the death of Aurangzeb, mainly the Mughal Empire that has started declining. Rest of the factors, it was prevalent, but it has been marked by the historians that the death of Aurangzeb, it is the you can say the starting point of later Mughals, rule of later Mughals, and as well as the declination of Mughal Empire. So let's start with this rapid recapitulation of this chapter. Who are these later Mughals? Already I have discussed about this thing. These later Mughals, after the death of Aurangzeb, they actually faced a lot of problem, which is the, you can say the for which the result was the decline of Mughal Empire. You can see the slide. Depleted military and financial resources that already has started during the time of Aurangzeb due to his Deccan expedition. It became difficult to keep a check on their powerful Mansabdars because the ruler was not present in the capital. It's been a long time where Aurangzeb was busy and Deccan. So other powerful Mansabdars, they are always trying to capture the power and to control their own areas, and which has actually reflected later on when they exercise their power over the weak ruler after the death of Aurangzeb. Nobles appointed as governor, which has been termed as Subedars, often control the offices of revenue and military administration. Very, very important, this two administrative part. Revenue department, that is, it is the part of where the main financial support is coming. That is also being controlled by the governors or the Subedars, and as well as the military administration, which and that is in turn it has been told like Faujdari. So as a result, the governor consolidated their control over the provinces. The periodic remission of revenue to the capital declined. It was inevitable. So that extra effort to get extra tax through unethical ways, those also you can say it has created a lot of problem among the peasants, and that's why the peasants and zamindari section they rebelled against Mughals. Later Mughals, unable to arrest the gradual shifting powers into the hands of provincial governors, local chieftains and other groups. During this time itself, very important events, two important events took place. First one is invasion of Nadir Shah, the king of Persia, who invaded India in 1739, entered Delhi without any trouble and stayed here for 58 days without any problem. Because there was the ruler who were there in Delhi, the Mughal ruler, they were not strong enough, plundered the wealth of Delhi and took away with him the Kohinoor diamond and famous peacock throne of Shah Jahan, annexed Afghanistan from the Mughals and made part of his Persian empire. So he was very successful, and which has affected very badly over the administrative and socio-economic aspect of later Mughal period of in India. After that, this Nadir Shah appointed one of his chieftain, Ahmed Shah Abdali, as the ruler of Afghanistan. He invaded five times India between 1748 and 1761. Mughal Empire sought the help of Maratha against the Afghans because that time the Marathas was one and only powerful power, that group who can give that support. Though Mughal emperor himself was a very weak ruler. So from his nobles, some of the nobles conspired against this particular contract or this kind of call, and actually that particular noble invited Ahmed Shah Abdali to invade India in a different way. But Maratha, they were defeated because whatever the alliance and other groups supposed to be there with Maratha, they betrayed with them. There you can see one question I have given. Which group of people challenged Mughal authority for the longest time in Aurangzeb's reign? That is Maratha. So from that Marathas only, the later Mughals are asking help. So it is very interesting fact. You can see the picture of Ahmed Shah Abdali. Actually, he was not interested to come to India and invade India during that time, but he has been provoked by the court nobles of Mughal Emperor, and he came and he defeated Maratha power in third battle of Panipat, that is in 1761. Now we will start with the textual key points of these different kind of states emerged during that time. That is the emergence of new states. Some features are there, that what type of state are coming into the power during that time. The states, the 18th century can be divided, the new states which can be divided into three overlapping groups. States that were old Mughal provinces like Awadh, Bengal and Hyderabad. States that had enjoyed considerable independence under the Mughal authority as Watan Jagir, you can refer the Rajputs, and the states under the control of Maratha Sheikhs and other like Jats, they are totally rebellion. So these three kind of groups which are actually coming in the power, and these groups are overlapping. Why this term has used? Because some of the time they are supporting each other and some of the time they are not at all favor of each other. So that interrelation between these overlapping groups are always keep on changing. That's why it has been mentioned as overlapping groups. So these new states emerge at the presence of Mughal authority. Let's start with the Hyderabad. Nizam ul Mulk Asaf Jha, time was 1724 to 1748. Mughal Emperor Farrukh Shir, he appointed as the Wazir of Hyderabad. And as the governor of Deccan province during 1720 to 22, Asaf Jha had already gained control over its political and financial administration. Brought skilled soldiers, administrators from northern India. He appointed Mansabdars and granted Jagirs. Ruled quite independently without seeking any direction from Delhi. So Hyderabad gained the maximum power, and which has been referred as Nizam also. Along with this Hyderabad, constant struggle with Marathas and independent Telugu warrior chiefs, which group is called as Nayakas. But what was the ambition of this Hyderabad ruler of that time, that is Asaf Jha? His ambition was, you can see the map, the area, that place under the control of Hyderabad. Asaf Jha's ambition was to reach textile producing areas of Coromandel coast. And you must remember that the time, the 1724, something like that, this time, already the Britishers were becoming increasingly powerful in that region. So Asaf Jha's target was to stop them. Now I am coming to the next part, that is Awadh. Appointed as Subedar of Awadh in 1722. His name was Burhan ul Mulk Sadat Khan, and he founded a state which was one of the most important to emerge out of the breakup of the Mughal Empire. It was a very prosperous region, controlling rich alluvial Ganga plain and the main trade route between North India and Bengal. Burhan ul Mulk also hold the combined offices of Subedari, Diwani and Faujdari. From here itself you can understand he was responsible for managing the political, financial and military affairs of the province of Awadh. That means he was the last word for the Awadh. Burhan ul Mulk influenced the Awadh region by reducing the number of office holders like Jagirdars appointed by the Mughals. He also reduced the size of Jagirs and appointed his own loyal servants in the vacant position. The accounts of Jagirdars were also checked to prevent cheating, and the revenues of all districts were reassessed by officials appointed by the Nawab's court. He seized a number of Rajput zamindaris and agriculturally fertile lands of the Afghans of Rohila Khan. So from here itself you can understand the Awadh was a very controlled and well administrated old Mughal province, and gradually gained its power under the leadership of Burhan ul Mulk Sadat Khan. Now I am coming to the next part, that is Bengal. The Murshid Quli Khan, appointed as the Navi, a deputy to the governor of the province, commanded the revenue administration of state. He transferred all Mughal Jagirdars to Orissa. Revenue was collected in cash with great strictness from all zamindars. Many zamindars had to borrow money from bankers and moneylenders. Those unable to pay were forced to sell their lands to large zamindars. You can see the picture. This is Ali Bardi Khan. He was the second Nawab of Bengal, that is 1740 to 1756. During his time, the close connection between state and bankers, it has been noticed, and this kind of thing also being noticed in Hyderabad and Awadh. Banking house of Jagat Seth became extremely prosperous. So many powerful people of that time, they are taking money as loan from this Jagat Seth, and they were having the maximum amount of wealth during that time, that the French colony commander or the British colony commander, they also taking loan from these private bankers. So from here itself we can understand the first type of new state, which is actually the part of old Mughal provinces. Now I am coming to the next part, that is Watan Jagirs of the Rajputs. Rajput kings, particularly belonging to Amber and Jodhpur. In exchange, they were permitted to enjoy considerable autonomy in their Watan Jagirs. Ajit Singh, the ruler of Jodhpur, involved in politics of Mughal court. He was very famous and very powerful also. Claimed Subedari of rich provinces such as Gujarat. Raja Ajit Singh of Jodhpur, he claimed that. And Malwa, Savai Raja Jai Singh of Amber. All these Watan Jagirs holders were very powerful. These offices were renewed by Emperor Jahandar Shah in 1713. Now I am coming to the last type of state who were totally different of the previous two groups, that is the Sikhs, Marathas and Jats. Khalsa Panth, which has been started by Guru Gobind Singh. Several battles were fought by Guru Gobind Singh against Rajput and Maratha rulers. After the death of Guru Gobind Singh, Khalsa rose in revolt against Mughal. Declared sovereign by striking coins and established their own administration between the Sutlej and Yamuna. Banda Bahadur, disciple of Guru Gobind Singh, captured in 1715 and executed in 1716 itself. So Guru Gobind Singh disciple Banda Bahadur, you can see the picture of Banda Bahadur. So he captured by Mughals and executed in the following year 1716. This administration of Sikhs were very, very interesting. The Sikhs were having the number of bands or bands. Those are termed as jathas or missals. There were 12 missals. Combined force of all jathas or missals are called Dal Khalsa. They meet at Amritsar during the Diwali and Baisakhi to take collective decisions, which is the resolution of the Guru, which is called the Guru Mats. Rakhi, offering protection to the cultivators on the payment of 20% of the produce. It's a kind of tax. Rakhi is a kind of protection tax of the cultivator. It has been collected by Sikhs. Maharaja Ranjit Singh, he was the famous Sikh leader under whose leadership Maratha united themselves. Raj Karega Khalsa. It was his that slogan, or you can say the keyword. 1765 again, Khalsa declared their sovereignty. Sikh territories in the late 18th century extended from the Indus to the Yamuna, but divided into different rulers. One of them, Maharaja Ranjit Singh, reunited these groups and established his capital at Lahore in 1799. It is very interesting. Maharaja Ranjit Singh was the last independent ruler during the British East India Company. In front of them also, he was able to keep his area sovereign. After the third battle of Anglo-Sikh War, finally the death of death of Rana Ranjit Singh, that area was captured by British East India Company. Now coming to the another important group, the rebellious group, the Marathas, whose capital was Pune. Shivaji, his time was 1627 to 1680, carved out a stable kingdom with the support of powerful warrior families, Deshmukhs. Group of highly mobile peasant or pastoralist, who is being called as Kunbis, provided the backbone of the Maratha. After the death of Shivaji, Chitwaban Brahmanas served Shivaji's successors as Peshwa or principal minister. They were actually looking after the entire Maratha kingdom. Powerful regional kingdom sustained opposition to Mughal rule all through this time. Between 720 to 1761, the Maratha Empire expanded. You can see from the map, Malwa and Gujarat were seized from Mughals by 1720s. You can understand timeline from the timeline itself. Already Aurangzeb died. So Mughal Empire under the leadership of weak rulers. By 1735, the Maratha king was recognized as the overlord of the entire Deccan Peninsula. He levied Chauth and Sardes Mukhi in the entire region. These two types of taxes were collected. Direct tax, that is 1/4 from the direct control area, and Sardes Mukhi is the 1/10 of the produce. It is the extended area or the external territory. From there, the Marathas were collecting these taxes. But throughout this expansion, whatever the things being done or expansion being done by Marathas brought enormous resource. It is right, but it comes at a price. How? These military campaigns also made other rulers hostile towards Marathas. As a result, they were not inclined to support the Marathas during the Third Battle of Panipat in 1761. The Maratha against Ahmad Shah Abdali, during that battle, Maratha were defeated. And you can say that was the greatest loss for entire Maratha Empire. because that can be the next powerful group of Indian subcontinent after Mughals. If this 1761, the third battle of Panipat, the result will be something different, our history will be written in a different form. Although Marathas' effective administrative system, we must say it is a wonderful arrangement. Once conquest was done, revenue demands were gradually introduced, taking local conditions into account. Agriculture was encouraged and trade revived. These allowed Maratha chiefs or Sardars the resources to raise powerful armies. Now I am coming to the last part of my session, that is the Jats. The Jats consolidated their power during the late 17th and 18th centuries. Churaman acquired control west of the city of Delhi. By 1680s, they had begun dominating the region between two imperial cities of Delhi and Agra. Jats were prosperous agriculturists at Panipat, and Ballabgarh became important trading centers. Under Surajmal, another famous ruler of Jat, the kingdom of Bharatpur emerged as a strong state. As you can see from the given map, it has given in your textbook also, the highlighted portion, the first half of the 18th century, the new and independent kingdoms are coming, and this area already marked properly. So this map is very important. You need to practice it for your exam. Here the capital and along with the territory is the most important thing. I hope that explanation help you out. Visual reference nice, and I hope when the next part, when I will give you the questions, you will be able to solve it out by yourself. Till then, stay tuned with me and be happy.